Hello, everyone. I'm Ryan Proffitt with Future Home Loans here at Future HQ. Joined today with Daniel Danger Danius and the man himself, Sonny Downey with United Real Estate Gallery. Hello, guys.
Howdy, howdy.
Hey,
Thanks
Ryan.
for coming on. I appreciate it. So, first, let's talk a little bit about Sonny. So, who is Sonny? Tell us a little bit about yourself and how we can get to know you.
Who am I? Well, I think we'll start off with I am Dan's broker, one of two brokers. Dan and I have actually we've had the privilege of working together for, gosh, I think at least 15 years now. I myself have been in the business for almost 2 decades now. I'm a former MLS president. I've been on the board of directors for our local board. My current position, I am the president and broker of United Real Estate Gallery. I oversee the sales and marketing for an organization of about 400 real estate associates here in the North Florida region.
Well, Sonny D, like as you mentioned, I've been with you. It's been 14 and a half years. Bella is 14 and a half years old, so I know exactly how long I've been in business because I started right when she was born. But can you tell the folks that might be listening in, I've had a couple customers ask me like, oh, I saw you change brokerages, and I've been kind of explaining that scenario, but we, Real Estate Gallery, we changed from Exit Real Estate Gallery to United Real Estate Gallery. Can you share about why that change and what it means for our brokerage?
Yeah, absolutely. Our previous brand that we were affiliated with was a franchise that was actually based in Canada, and our franchise agreement had actually came up. We saw an opportunity in the market to be able to realign our organization with a organization that we saw was on a fast track to growth, and we chose United. United is embedded in 100 years of history of real estate. It actually started back in 1928 in Texas. The company, more recent, I'd say in the last 10, 15 years, has really experienced some tremendous growth through private equity partners who have helped fuel the growth. And where we see kind of the future of real estate going is more regionalized. And this new partnership is allowing not only our brand, but our agents to be able to expand in other markets more easier and with a lot more resources and more money in their pocket.
That's awesome. That's always good news. Change is always good. That's the way I look at it. The market's always changing. And speaking of the market, the question I get asked a lot, and I'm sure you get asked this every single day, is this a buyer's market or a seller's market?
It's definitely still a seller's market, but I would almost tell you if you start to isolate data, you can actually find a couple different stories. And what I mean by that is a lot of the data that we're fed is national, but real estate's local by nature. So not only does it matter by the neighborhood, but it also boils down to sometimes the price point. And in some price points, specifically the 300 to 500,000, we see that inventory is moving fast, and we see that there are still buyers out there. They're not competing like they had to a year ago. But where we start to get some concerns is as we start climbing over $1 million and up, we find that the luxury consumer, they tend to be more rate sensitive. And this is where we're starting to see inventory is starting to slowly climb. It's still below what we call the equilibrium of 6 months, but it's trending in that direction right now.
Yeah, I was having a conversation today with somebody about how, to a lot of people, the real estate market slowed a lot for what it was, but we've come from such a frenzied place that yes, if the months of inventory is below 1 month of inventory, and then we quadruple to 4 months of inventory, that's a big shift from where we just were, but still, statistically or historically, 4 months of inventory, that doesn't mean it's a bad real estate market, right?
No. I mean, let's just like when you look at the last 2 years, inventory was depleted. So if anything, the last 6 months has allowed inventory to catch up. which has actually started to deflate overinflated prices. And I want to be clear, because if you're looking at sold data, which is how appraisers price properties and how we as realtors price properties, we know that the median home price is actually holding steady. Last month there was about a 13% growth, which is cooled off compared to where it was a year ago, where we were seeing 25-30% growth. We like single digit growth, because single digit growth keeps up and keeps in pace with wages. You know, when we see pricing growing even at 15%, you know, as a broker, you know, in the industry, I don't see the Feds letting up on interest rates just yet. I think once we start seeing the median price get to me a normal sustainable growth pattern, which to me is like 3 to 5%, I think we'll be back on track. But there's still great opportunities out there for savvy buyers if they can buy using their brain and not their emotions.
Yeah.
I think you have a lot of people that are very emotional right now, because they're finally seeing that they have a chance to not get outbid, because that's what they've been experiencing the previous 2 years. And now they might be tempted to overpay because, you know, based on what they see for sale. And remember, we as realtors and appraisers, we look at what's sold. Buyers look what's for sale. And I think buyers, they're going to see pricing coming down, but it's not coming down based off of what's sold. It's coming based off of what was overinflated. You know, I look at the last 2 years, and houses were not sold for cheap. I mean, houses were sold for record-breaking numbers. The last time we saw real estate sell for this much was 2005, 2006. And if you consider in 2005, 2006, houses weren't cheap then either. Well, if houses weren't cheap, what was cheap? Money. Money was really cheap. And when money's cheap, people are willing to throw it around like they did for the last 2 years. I mean, today, and Ryan, maybe you can tell me more about this. You know, if somebody, you know, was qualified for a $400,000 house, you know, a year ago, and they were at a 3% interest rate. Well, if their interest rate today is at 6%, I mean, on that $400,000 house, I mean, their purchase power, what has that been depleted by?
Yeah, the payment's like $700 more a month, roughly. So if you look at that, you know, that's a good chunk of almost, you know, $70,000-$80,000 in buying power. So that gets, you know, if you're looking at $500,000, now you're looking at maybe 420 range, which is completely different market, especially here in Northeast Florida. So good news. You know, we talked about it yesterday with the Fed's announcement, maybe hopefully cooling off the market, and we can see a little interest rate drop come in the first quarter here for us. So they'll get that buying power back up to where it was before. So do you think it's a good time to purchase a home now?
I mean, I certainly do. And I say this because I mean, even with interest rates going up, you'll always regret what you didn't buy 5 years ago. Pricing is still sustaining itself, which is why people are, you know, this is why they're saying there is no recession. Pricing is still going up. So real estate is still a healthy investment. It's still the #1 path for personal wealth for individuals, and quite frankly, for someone that doesn't own real estate that's renting. Right now, there is no rent control in the state of Florida. I could tell you at the state level, for Florida Realtors, which is a organization that represents over 200,000 members right here in the state of Florida, they don't want rent control. That impedes on home ownership rights. So really, a renter's only form of rent control today is a mortgage. And despite where the interest rates may be, we know where they're at, and we know where they can go. And even if you're locking it in today, it's where we're at today, it's being induced by the government with the goal of curbing inflation, which, like I said, you are starting to see it work, because now these overinflated prices are being deflated, and buyers that were on the market in the last 12 to 24 months that may have been discouraged because they did not find anything that they liked, or they may have felt pressured because there was this frenzy of money that was being ingested in our communities. And what I mean by that is, the past 2 years, we had people that were flocking to the state of Florida, like unlike any other state, because of government shutdowns. I think today most would say it's safe to say we're past the pandemic. And because we're past the pandemic and governments have reopened all across the US, we have seen the migration patterns start to shift, and they're not going heavily in our direction in the Sunbelt states as they were. And there was a lot of speculation with Wall Street, which is why they got in, and they started, these open doors, started buying all these properties, because they thought everybody was going to be moving to the Sunbelt states. And right now what we're seeing is that's changing right now. You're seeing some employers wanting to bring back employees because they don't feel that the synergy is there, where some employers are still okay with, remote working. So I think it's still kind of 50-50 with that aspect, but every time's a good time to buy real estate. It really is. It's all about how it gets framed in your mind. And like I said, the way you got to frame it today is buying a home today is the equivalent of rent control.
What do you think about homeowners when it comes to selling? If somebody's like, oh, I missed my shot, 6, 7 months ago, 8 months ago, the real estate market was so crazy, it would have flew off the shelf. Now things have slowed a little bit. Would you say that now is a bad time to sell a home, or what would you say to somebody that was
No, I think it's still it's a great time to sell a home. I mean, because although they may have missed the peak, they're still sitting on record amount of equity. The last time a seller had this much equity was back in 2005. And what we learned in 2006 was what goes up must go down. Now, the lesson we learned in 2006 is it jumps off the cliff. The difference today, because it is government induced, where 2006 was not government induced. What you have today is it's literally a dial, and all they're doing is they're just dialing back the price. So instead of having it fall off of the cliff, it's just taking this slow ride down. But for a seller that wants to sell, they, like I said, they still have a good opportunity to make record amounts of equity if they're not greedy.
Mm.
And what I mean by that is you have some sellers that are looking at some of the data over the past year. And if you look at 12-month data, it certainly could tell you one story, and for a seller, it tells a good story. But the part that gets left out is the cost of debt service. Because a year ago, what would you say the rates were floating around, Ryan?
Right around 3%.
Okay, so I mean, you consider if a year ago the rates were sitting around 3%, to finance $10,000 a year ago, you were probably looking at what, $40 by the time you pay tax, insurance. So you figure if you're financing $100,000, right, that's probably what, an additional $300 a month is probably what it is. So people were willing to throw around an extra $30 or $40 or $50,000 because at the rate that the prices were going up and the rate that they could borrow the money, why wouldn't they? Fast forward to today, you just have buyers that are looking at interest rates. They're willing to pay you. They're willing to pay you top dollar, they're not willing to pay you over market value. A year ago, they would have paid you over market value. That's, I think, what the biggest difference is. So are you probably going to get, like if you're a buyer, is it realistic to think that you're going to get 50% off of the prices a year ago? Not at all. You know, what would be more realistic for you to see is that you might see, based on what's sold, right? Because again, buyers look at what's for sale. Based on what's sold, I would probably expect maybe 5 to 10% over. Anything over that, overpaying on a property today, just isn't recommended. And I do think after the first of the year, you're going to see a lot more homes hit the market. And as these homes hit the market, it's also going to create more compression for the seller, because the seller is going to feel compression from interest rates from the government. And they're also going to feel compression from other listings hitting the market. So to me, because your biggest selling season is spring and summer, if you're a seller, it's probably a good time to hop on it right now, especially during the winter, because there are fewer homes on the market, so there's less competition. So you have a higher probability of your home being seen.
Yeah, so you actually brought up kind of the next topic that I think we want to go into, and that was 2023. You know, there's one thing to listen to the news about real estate in general, and it's United States, and there's a lot of different markets. But for us in Northeast Florida, what do you think 2023 has in store for the real estate market in Northeast Florida?
I think we are in a very unique place, because I don't know if we're bulletproof, but you know what national news is saying is not what we experience here in North Florida.
Is it the Jaguars?
I mean, I'm gonna look here at my crystal football right here, and in 2023, I don't see a Super Bowl ring. No, I think that the Jacksonville economy is very unique and unlike any other Florida city. Because when you look at all the other major metropolis areas in Florida, a lot of them are highly dependent on the tourist dollar. And when you look at Jacksonville, you know, as a metropolitan area, with the exception of St. Augustine and probably Amelia Island, tourism is not our primary force here. Our primary job creators here is the military, which to me, the military, whether a market's up or down, you're still going to need the military. And I think right now, with everything going on overseas, I think you're going to see more government movement with government employees. So I think, you know, again, North Florida is going to be good. In addition to that, because you've got a war over in Europe, logistically, as they start to need to ship off equipment, there's only so many ports on the East Coast. And, you know, even you consider the ports, well, who has free space? Jacksonville, you know, Jack's Ports is a big landlord of and they lease out space there. So I think between the government and other external forces, you're going to see that the logistics, I think, in our market is still going to flourish. And then banking and insurance and health, I mean, those are still big things. I think you're still going to see people coming from up north, especially New York, looking for relief from expenses. And then I think you're still going to see people from the South, Miami, Fort Lauderdale, where they're going to be moving between here and the Carolinas, because they've realized that South Florida is just as expensive and it's just as crowded as it is in New York. So listen, I think we're in the best place to be selling real estate right now. It's good to be in real estate in North Florida.
You kind of touched on a little bit about Northeast Florida, so we appreciate all the insights. Because I kind of agree with all those points as well. We're kind of a unicorn here in Northeast Florida. That's the way I look at it. Even I saw National Association of Realtors came out and said they're projecting like a 4% housing price increase in 2023. So that goes against everybody saying that we're going to go down, 30-40%. So any recommendations or anything you have for people that are just kind of sitting on the fence? I feel like we're kind of we've been in a standoff the last couple of months, and then you throw in a couple of hurricanes that we had come through the state, and it's just been a real interesting last fourth quarter.
Well, I think if you are a buyer looking to buy, I think it's important that you have a realtor that is well versed in values, because a lot of the pricing is a lot of property is overvalued. This guy right there, a lot of properties are overvalued, and if you can have a realtor that is able to identify these properties and can put your best interests front and forward and negotiate on your behalf, I think you can get a good deal. And as far as for sellers, what I would say for them is, when you're looking at sales data, don't look beyond the last 4 months. I think since May, I mean, there's been at least 10 to 15 rate hikes, somewhere around there. I mean, between going up and down, I think at least 10, but I feel like last time I counted, there's been a couple more. So understand this: while a seller's holding out trying to get more money, they have to realize as interest rates climb, the more a buyer has to pay in debt service, the less they're going to be willing to pay you in equity. So right now, rather than waiting and watching your neighbor, waiting for them to sell, get with your realtor, get a right price of what it's going to take to get your home sold in 30 days, because every 30 days, the price is going to slowly taper itself down until the government gets us down to single-digit growth. Once they see us 3 to 6% growth, that's when I think you're going to see interest rates start to get back down, probably into the 3s and 4s. But until that happens, I think you got to be clever in the way that you're going to win your market. Like if you're a seller, take a loss on selling, make up your win on buying. If you're a buyer, be wise on the buying side, because that's where you're going to make your money. That would be my advice.
All right, Sonny D with some hot takes for the real estate market. Sonny, we appreciate you joining with us. And
yeah, thank you guys for having me. I've been waiting, one whole year to get onto this podcast. I'm just finally privileged to finally get invited here. Thank you.
Well, yeah, we had a window where we couldn't find anybody else, so we thought, hey, let's.
It was on our goals to have you on before the end of the year, and we got it in 2 weeks before you.
All right, I can check it off my box now for this year. At least I got it off my 2023 resolution list.
Yeah. You're a busy man. We saw your calendar. I mean, you're all over the place. So it's we're respectful of your time. So thank you.
I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much.
All right.
All right. Take care.